BPI Sports has always been a massive supporter of natural bodybuilding, so it only made sense for us and them to partner up. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by BPI Sports, and if you want to support them and us, use code Natty News Daily at checkout for some exclusive discounts off any of your orders. Enjoy the episode.
What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of Natty News Daily. You guys are going to know who we've got on the podcast this morning, Mr. AJ Morris, making his triumphant return to the podcast. A little fuller in the face, I think, since we last saw him. We've switched roles. Our faces have transitioned from one another. So how are you, my man?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm really, really good. Thank you for having me back on. Really appreciate it. And yeah, you're right. Recovered from prep as I should be. I think if I had a skeleton face right now, I definitely wouldn't be improving. So, 20 plus pounds above stage weight, feeling sort of better by the week. Yep. And still carrying a good chunk of fatigue from that prep. It was certainly wasn't the most, I guess, easy ride at the end with regards to sort of like doing the consecutive shows and staying in condition for that sort of time period. And also trying to get leaner as well. So, but yeah, no, I'm feeling a little better now and getting back to enjoying myself in the gym again.
Yep.
When you say fatigue, just kind of beat up, just dragging a little bit still, or would you say?
I think fatigue more relative to the hormonal status that was sort of stayed in for quite a lot of time. So I think the physiological adaptations are hidden by adrenaline post show. So you come out of the show and you're like, oh, I feel good. I feel energetic. I feel close to normal. And I even made a post saying sort of, I feel like I'm recovering. I'm very quickly recovered. I did feel good at that point, but then you get the adrenaline sort of wash off and the excitement of that post-show window wash off. And you're like, no, okay, I'm still not back to my normal self. So fatigue markers being, I think libido still being pretty low. Food focus and all that jazz doesn't really ever bother me because I'm just not really that kind of like guy. Like I enjoy food, but it didn't really bother me during prep. It doesn't really bother me post-show, but I think, to relative with food, it's more so just high appetite even after eating a meal, all of those kind of signs that taking a little longer. Definitely sort of more so very like my 2017 recovery as opposed to 2020, which I was recovered literally like within a week post show because I just didn't get stage condition. Like my libido was like normal all the way through prep, like even one day out. Yeah. So I can get like for me, so that was in relative terms, that was 162 on show day in Italy, where it was in okay stage condition, but just nothing close to what I hit this past year.
Wow. So you were on stage what I'm at right now. That's interesting.
Yeah. I was 162 in Italy when I won that European Championship. I was 152 on stage when I won the UK and international. And probably look my best. So a year later, 10 pounds lighter, but probably looking like 10 pounds bigger. But those 10 pounds for me to get off, that's the territory which really messes me up in terms of like all the normal effects that you get when you get that lean. So yeah, that territory for me just takes some time to get out of. Probably another month and I'll be pretty good.
Yep. So
let's about on a similar timeline with like post-show, post-season. So it's interesting to hear where you're at. And everyone's a little different with the markers that that do affect them. Some this more than that. Like I feel phenomenal generally, but like my libido's been tanked since like July. So it's like, but other than that, I feel great. Lifts are progressing great. I feel strong as an ox, like, all that stuff. But that's kind of the last holdout.
I think there's also like a difference because you can feel really, really strong in the gym, but because you're deploying a lot of energy availability towards that process, and obviously we put a lot of effort into the way that we train. Your body's almost like not really giving you the energy availability for the physiological processes to start to adapt as well and like recover from the prep. So, for me right now, like I want to get really, really strong, but I knew if I probably took like a week off the gym and I ate my training day macros, I know my libido would come back within like 4 days because of the fatigue drop off from training. So I think some of it's masked in me training like an animal in the gym, that just naturally makes me feel very tired, and my body's still getting used to progressive overload again, because the reality is for like the majority of the last couple of months of contest prep training, it was all about retention. It was all about like maintaining. Like, wasn't really chasing progression because it's not realistic. If you're getting progressions at the back end of prep, something's changing with your execution, bottom line. So it was just like holding on to performance, and that's very different to the stress that's created from progressive overload. So my body's just sort of taking a bit of time to adapt to that as well.
Oh yeah. After yesterday's like session, I train typically around like 9 or 10 a.m. So, get in there for legs around 10, walking out around noon. So the day's half gone. And it was like quality session. Like I was in it. And funny you mentioned like the fatigue. The whole rest of the day, like my friends want to go skating, and I was like, you guys are nuts. Like I can't even get off the couch right now. And the whole rest of the day, it just felt like I was hit by a bus.
Yep.
But it was just like, it was a combination of obviously the physical output, the mental output, like it's all into that 2 hours. And after that, it was just like, I am useless to everybody right now.
It's always fun having to hit your AJ, you track steps, like your steps and like during prep, like the day after and 2 days after a leg session where you're just sore and already, and like I'm sure you've experienced that.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, well, not fortunately, I don't know whether it's fortunately, I would hit the same number every single day, regardless of whether my legs felt like they were falling off.
Oh yeah, you hit it, but it's like it's
it just gets a little harder for sure.
So let's briefly talk about the latter half of this most recent prep, because we've spoken about that. I don't know how much people know the details about it, but you pushed really hard. Your calories got really low. Like you were still losing 1.5, 2 pounds a week. And, you've spoken, relatively publicly that it was maybe not the best idea. It didn't necessarily bring the best look. You felt trashed. You're still recovering. So can you just touch on that really quick before we transition to the next plan of approach?
Yeah, sure. So I think first of all, hindsight's always amazing in bodybuilding. I mean, even when you have like the best plan and you think you're doing the right things, you always look back and you think you could have done things better from every single prep. I don't doubt that my next prep, I'll look back and see things and things that would change. So it's not like I made huge errors of judgment or anything like that. I just think that, especially when I got the feedback from the UK show and I got sort of told by Lee, especially, just don't really do anything. Just make sure you keep what you've got and sort of just like allow yourself to kind of cruise into the rest of these shows that you've got ahead of you. So like my mindset is always, okay, well, that's the feedback. So I'm going to kind of like not prove him wrong, but I'm just going to show him something better.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, let's try and pull off a little bit more body weight and see what that yields. I think for the world show, had the peaking process been more efficient, I'll talk about that in a second, I would have been my absolute best at that show. Cause like 2 days out from that show, and even 1 day out, more like 2 days when we arrived there after the travel, I definitely was my best ever. I was leaner than the UK, and I think I mean, even on the show day, I was leaner than the UK. It's just after that, definitely the look wasn't the best for the Olympia, because what happened is I actually thought my season was over. I thought that was the last show. So I typically, I went out to eat.
Yep.
I consciously ate as if I was beginning the reverse diet or recovery diet. So I ate a lot of food. I went up like, 8-9 pounds in body weight from sodium fluctuations and just having a lot of calories. And then, I got put in front of him the idea of doing the Olympia, and I was like, shit,
I got to do it.
I got to do it because I really want to be there, and I really want to experience it, be part of the first like UK FBA team that goes out there. I want to be there from a coaching standpoint to understand what the standards are like. So I then had to pull off all of that weight. Obviously, none of that is muscle. All of it's muscle glycogen, some body fat. Fundamentally, there will be some body fat there gained in that period of time. So I had to pull off more body fat from gaining no new muscle. So what did I do in that process? Probably sacrifice some muscle. It's why I'm always very stern with post shows for clients that have more shows. They don't go out to eat. If they do, then it's very controlled. Because
that's
the last
funny you mentioned that, because Cliff and I have had that very same subject, because I've got like throughout my April, there's 4 shows on the calendar, and he's like, we can do it. He's like, but you can't have any freedom post show. Like, if anything, like maybe you can get like a chicken breast and broccoli to go out for dinner. But he's like, I personally would probably opt completely against it, and just because it's too close, you have zero room for error. You screw up a little bit, you're 6 days out. Like, what are you going to do in 6 days? You're trying to get ahead, right? Like you said, you're trying to maybe, inch a little bit leaner. But if you go back a pound or two and you were trying to chase half a pound, well, now you're 2.5 behind.
Especially because you go into each show, like you want to go in fully loaded with carbohydrates. So it's like you're on the brink of spilling already. So
yeah. So I think that was why I was able to improve from the UK show to the Romania shows, because I had 2-week gap, and in between those 2 weeks, all I did was like perfect execution from post show from the UK to FBA into a little bit of fat loss into another peak. So it literally worked perfectly. I had a week of fat loss and a week of peaking with the linear reverse. So that worked fantastic. I think the reason why I maybe wasn't happy with, well, I say I wasn't happy. I was still happy with what I brought. I felt like it was apples and oranges, whatever you want to say, between me and Dan, who eventually won. But it was also like, it was a case of, I thought that when I looked at the photos, the way that the lighting worked at that venue, and specifically, I just don't think I even had an actual perception of what I looked like. Whereas at the UK FBA show, I had the black backdrop with perfect stage lighting, and I could really see, okay, this is what I'm actually working with. And it's the first time I ever received stage shots and thought, I'm actually really pretty happy with where I'm at from a muscularity perspective. Now that I've got all the body fat off, it really shows. It just shows how I train. It shows what I vision when I train as well. It shows more maturity, more density that's been put on a physique that already had sort of the shape there to be a decent bodybuilder. So I was a little bit sort of disappointed with those pictures, and obviously I was disappointed with the result because I wanted to win. So yeah, and then like I said, coming away from that, doing the Olympia is a fantastic experience. I already knew who was gonna compete. I already knew that Jacob would be in my class, and I just wanted to compete against him because he's going to be one of the natural bodybuilders. If he stays on this path, he'll probably be one of those that will just be remembered in the future because he's going to be one of the best. Put it this way, I had him definitely third in the natural Olympia and the pro class. I definitely had him third in that lineup, but you could have definitely argued him actually winning. Cleaner lines than second and first, but just maybe the second and first were carrying a ridiculous amount of muscularity, and they kind of like the judging that pro level, they kind of seem to favor a little bit more of the muscularity over condition seemed to be at that particular one. But I think overall, to wrap up the season, it just taught me that, again, to get where I want to be, I'm glad that I haven't sort of accepted the professional status yet, or I haven't got it. I didn't get it last year. So I'm glad that I don't, because I don't want to be there until I'm at that level and can be competitive at that level. And I think
that's important for people to hear, right? Is like, people are so, and I can speak to this, you can speak to this, Dan can speak to this, you're so eager to hit that pro status, right? Just, from an intrinsic level, you've made it, you've worked your butt off. A lot of us have been training probably 10 plus years now, but you go to that level, like it's a totally different ball game, right? Like it's to be a really good amateur, to win shows as an amateur, blah, 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 and then turn pro, man, like you'd be ready to get your ass handed to you, unless like that's why like after this season, like I'm gonna go away for 2 or 3, 4 years again, because if I get what I want, I know I'm not good enough to be a, to defend, like to fight for any decent placings, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to the way that we all work, and a lot of people who are listening to this podcast as well, like our mindsets work. I don't want to do a show that I don't have the chance to win.
No,
I don't.
no,
So
no.
I don't want to get a pro card and go and compete against Ben Howard or Mitch Jarvis, who I know I'm not beating yet. And I know for a fact I'm not there yet because I've posed literally right next to them.
Yeah.
Those
photos are nutty. Those photos are nutty, by the way.
Those are really cool.
Yeah, that was another reason why I just love these trips, is because you get those kind of opportunities. Like me and Ben throughout that day, one day out in Romania, we literally just like would eat a meal, go downstairs to the gym, pose, eat a meal, go downstairs to the gym, pose. So I saw Ben's glutes about 1 million times that day and made me feel very self-conscious about mine. But yeah, like, and Ben, even on that day, he was like saying to me, it's there, but you're maybe one off season away from being at the level that you probably want to be, to be competitive. There is just missing gaps in maturity, and that just comes with time,
for sure.
But equally, and I'm sure we've all had this, but like I've done it now where I've obviously competed in 2017, 2020, 2021. And I get good feedback, and obviously I've had great success, but I always get the same thing. It's like the shape's there, but with more muscle. So I'm bored. I'm just bored of hearing more muscle. I'm so bored of it.
Yeah.
I want to, next time I compete, I want to come to a show and I just want someone to tell me, you've got enough muscle.
Yeah.
Like, there you go. Like,
good job. You win.
That. Yeah, you win. But
it's tough,
so
right?
Do you ever have enough? Do you ever have enough muscle though?
I
never have too much.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, maybe
There's
see
a
what they're
look,
saying,
right?
because
like you
right
can speak
now,
to that.
yeah, right now the frame isn't filled with as much muscle as it really like one needs to be competitive at a professional level, or two, like there's just like you could argue, okay, I could go assisted, and there's endless room to fill the frame, but as a natural physique, I know that for a fact, like there is definite potential to add more and it not look disproportionate or anything like that. And it's only going to bring more condition as well. That's the thing, is like there's body parts that I think the biggest difference this past season was the maturity and conditioning I was able to achieve in my hamstrings. I've never been able to see my hamstrings like dug out and separated. And this time I was able to do that. And that is purely as a result of more muscle. So I know if I want the body part that really I want all the way there with like fullness with the glutes, I just need even more glute tissue. But that just proves how big your glutes have to get for them to
back
be
under that bar, my
shredded.
man.
Like,
you're gonna make it happen, boy.
You've got to have really, 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 really big glutes. So yeah, that's just what's coming.
Awesome. Okay. Now the fun part. What's coming down the
scoop?
What's coming down the pipeline? This is Natty News exclusive. Everybody's hearing it first right now.
I've forgotten about it.
Oh yeah, the biggest news to kick off the new year for natural bodybuilding is probably this right now, because everybody's going to be buzzing to hear it. You've got the floor, my friend.
I hope people find it interesting. It's a pleasure if people do find it very interesting.
I'm just stoked because I don't know. You got two great minds in the sport, two personalities that have a good following that can make it exciting, make it fun. You've got the floor.
It's gonna be fun. So yeah, actually, like as soon as I finish prep, every time I come back from a trip, even if I'm not competing, I'll always get on my phone on the plane and I'll just jot away loads of notes and thoughts and my opinion on things that maybe has changed as a result of seeing something or a judging decision or the way that I need to look or whatever. And on the plane back from the Olympia, the first thing I wrote was just I need to get someone in my corner. I need to build a relationship now that I feel very confident in my ability to trust that individual moving into my next prep, which is the moment. It still is, the plan is 2023. So that's a year dedicated to growing, dedicated to the off season. Whether I need a little bit more time, or I don't feel like if I don't feel like I've hit new stuff in the gym consistently for a long time, solidified that new tissue, and can get myself into a good start point for 2023, I will wait another year. And obviously this person, I'll heavily ride on their opinion as well. So yeah, then, obviously the decision making process occurs in your head. Okay, who? One of the first individuals that I ever followed in the sport when it came to coaching, when it came to actually a competitive athlete as well, was Alberto Nunez. So Berto, as everyone sort of knows him. And equally, I became very, very sort of like quite close friends with Dirk, his client. The back end of this year, we were sort of communicating on a daily basis about our peaks and how he was looking, how I was looking. And because he was doing WNBF Worlds, I was doing the Natural Olympia. So it's like a nice sort of like back and forth with him. He obviously ultimately ended up with his ultimate goal. And he looked absolutely tremendous and did a prep which just on paper looked crazy and did a lot of things. And I saw a lot of things happen to his physique when he was sending me some photos that I was just like, how's he gonna like reel this back into where he was at and like actually bring his best? His physique looked like different, tired, and then he just looked amazing like 5-6 days later. And I was, this is what's happening in front of my eyes here with his physique, and his trust in Berto was a relationship that they'd nurtured over a long time.
Yeah, for those that don't know, he'd been working with Berto since 16, I think. Like, they've been together a long time.
Yeah, I remember he said that on our last podcast with him.
Yeah, so don't undervalue what AJ is saying when he's saying like he's worked with him and invested time in him, because that right there, as talented as Dirk is as an athlete, as Berto is as a coach, that relationship over those years is pivotal, like you said.
Yeah, it really is. So I just needed to make a move as soon as possible. So I sent Berto a voice note on Instagram and just sort of like laid down what my idea was and the fact that I'd really like to work with him. Obviously, it's going to be a slightly different sort of coaching relationship in the sense that I do really want to sort of have the majority of control from a training standpoint.
Yep.
I feel very, very confident with what works for me in terms of both in the off season, but also in pre-contest. I just know what I need to do. And I'm pretty sure
I take a similar approach in my training. I don't like anyone touching my training. I'll ask for like insight or like, what's your thoughts on this, or like little organization, but in terms of like overall management, I'm the same way. But nutrition, and that sort of stuff,
See, the thing is, that brings up a very relevant point, because I don't do anything stupid in training. I don't sacrifice my training. I won't. I just don't do it. I do appropriate volume. I take appropriate rest, and I'm always smart. And that's why I think I'm good at holding on to performance and holding on to muscle, because I'm very smart with my training. Now, where I go wrong is I just want more all the time. And where do I get that from? I do probably more expenditure than I should at certain points. I don't refeed or run high days unless I am on death's door. I dig down my calories to create a rate of loss that sometimes isn't sufficient, and I wouldn't want a client to do, and I wouldn't allow a client to lose as fast as I lost in some weeks. So I go against the grain because I'm an extremist when it comes to this. And I think all of us as bodybuilders or successful bodybuilders are pretty extreme. So I
think having that outside eye on the nutrition, there's just something to it. It's just like, and you can kind of, like you've alluded to, like you just kind of want to dig more. You just want to dig more. Like, how can I get better? How can I get leaner? Like constantly. And
it's essential
having that outside eye that could be like, calm yourself. You're good. You're good. Leroy, we had the conversation.
I was going to chime in. I was going to chime in really quick there. So similar to what AJ's talking about, what I do with Cliff. For those that don't know, I work with Cliff Wilson. I handle all my training. He asked, "Do you want me to do your training?" Blah blah. I said, "No, I like it. I like what I do, and I found a method that works for me." And again, to AJ's point, right now we have the weekly refeeds. With what my weight has done the last 3 weeks, I would have completely dug myself way deeper because it hasn't budged in 3 weeks. Cliff's like, "Nope, I like the look. Keep it going. We'll adjust when we need to." Week goes by, not much change. No, man, it's okay. I like what I see. Things are good. And I have to trust, just like AJ's going to have to trust Berto's eye, Berto's knowledge. We hired them for a reason. We're working with them for a reason. But like AJ said, that extremist, that I want more, I can get leaner. Just, I won't do the refeed. No, I need you to do the refeed. I want you to do the refeed. Yeah, but no, I'm your coach. Listen to me. And that's where I think, from my experience, has helped me vastly. And I think from AJ's experience with Berto in the coming year, it'll be a game changer. I really think that, man.
Yeah. So I mean, you basically nailed my sort of thoughts there. Is just, I need someone to put my trust into. I need someone that I know understands exactly what he needs to see from not only like, okay, get me into condition, but okay, give me an idea of where you think this is gonna land. Give me some.
The amount of times I've asked Cliff, "What do you think I'm gonna weigh on show day?" He's probably like, "Shut up! It doesn't matter. Just get in shape."
and more so, even just like a little bit of a confidence boost in terms of, okay, this is looking really good in comparison to physiques that he's seen at a pro level. Like I want his eyes, which is, viewed people that have turned pro. I want his eyes that have seen people in the pro classes across multiple different federations. I need that kind of professional eye. As much as there's loads of other people in the industry that I really look up to and I'd love to learn off and work with, I need someone that's in the trenches for a long time. And Berto and Cliff are exactly that in terms of people that have just been there in natural bodybuilding for a long, long time. So that's what and I also just value Bert as a person. He's always supported me. He's always following what I do on Instagram. He's aware of me. He's not just like this person that like I'd contact and I'd just be like, I'm not sounding like a dick here, but I just wouldn't be like another random inquiry to Bert. Like, he replied to me via voice note. He said that he'd really be excited and stoked to work with me. That's something that I feel is important. Yeah, because he respects how much I care about this. He understands that I'm someone that will do anything in my power to be better. So yeah, we're going to start off with just their sort of like off-season coaching style scenario. So once every sort of couple of months or so, I'll have a Skype call. And I've got actually my first one today with him, just sort of discussing where I'm at and giving myself a little bit more of a trajectory of where I should be at over the course of this year. And then pretty confident the back end of this year, especially as we start to, if we get green light on going in 23, probably by at least October time, I can imagine that I'll be under full weekly check-ins with him and going through some sort of a pre-preparatory phase, I can imagine, to get myself into a really good position to start prep. And then the goal will be to come back to the UK FBA finals as the first show. And given that I'm a British champion, I should get a direct invite for that one. So I'll do the same that I did in 21 and come back with the goal of winning that. But this time, not just the class, the overall as well.
I'm really excited for you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So
the value from the last like 20 minutes of conversation for any athlete is off the charts in this one. So
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, AJ.
I appreciate you guys having me on and chatting to me.
Before we go, I just want to quickly touch on what the off season is going to look like for you. So this is something that I think I saw you post about pushing north of 200 again.
Sure.
Is that still something you want to do? We talked to Berto and he was going on about getting the first little bit off, holding there, and then starting prep in a better position, which is similar to what I did, coming from 200 to 180, hang out there a little bit, and kind of officially start prep, 20 pounds lighter than peak off season. Is that something that you are intending to do?
Yeah, I can imagine something like that. I think I think what Berto will sort of say to me over the course of the next couple of Skype calls will be in the encouragement of me getting to a body weight where I'm the most effective in the gym, which I know for me is probably anywhere between 180 and 190.
Yeah.
So whether or not it's just like, okay, we see 190, what 190 looks like on a visual basis, because the thing is, for me, 200 pounds wasn't super, super soft. I carry body fat very well.
Yeah, you felt I think me and you are very similar stature and where we kind of hold fat and tissue and stuff, and like 200 didn't look terrible.
No.
But not as good as 180 to 185. Yeah. But I also felt at 200 that element of like, I feel like a gorilla in the gym and I'm kind of unstoppable. Yeah. And that then goes back to what you touched on earlier with your training and more 5 pounds PR, another rep. And that kind of fuels our mentality towards training, which then reflects what we see on the scale. And it's that fine balance between that, right?
It is 100%. So I just need to find that middle ground. I think for me, if I get to 200, the only thing that I know needs to be done differently for 23's prep is I just don't want to start prep at a peak body weight that I've only just gotten to. Like that was the issue with 21, is that I got to 200, only spent 2 weeks there and then started dieting.
Said hi and then left.
So I need to spend some more time there, which is what I'm honestly just not afraid about how quickly the weight comes on right now. As long as I'm relatively content with what I see in the mirror, I'm gaining as much as I need to gain with my numbers going up. And I don't really care too much, because I also know when the time comes, I know I can get the body fat off, and whatever needs to be done to get the body fat off, I'll do it. But equally, I know with Berto in my corner, especially the back end of the year, he'll put a leash on whatever I've done in the off season to be able to control me back down. So, don't get me wrong, the rate of gain has certainly started to slow down now, but initially out of the gate, it was as quick as needed to recover and get me up to like being able to roll in, 220 kilo deadlifts and just pull it off the floor how it's meant to move, as opposed to the first time I pulled 220 off the floor, like sub 170, and it felt like everything was still going to just be torn up and thrown out the window. Like, it just doesn't feel good. So I want my training to feel good. And that's as a byproduct of being at a productive body weight. So that's sort of how the off season will look.
Awesome. Great way to close this out. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you coming on as always. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Sweet. Yeah, no problems, guys. And hopefully this one gets received well. And like what I've said, I appreciate everyone that sort of listens to these and follows along with the journey.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. If you guys enjoyed this episode with AJ, let us know. Give us a like. Obviously, I'm going to assume most of you watching already follow him on social media, but if not, hit him up on Instagram. That's where he's posting all his training content and everything. So thanks again, AJ. We appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one.